future directions. But the one thing is religious freedoms in India. So two things that like me I care about is one is the state control of Hindu temples. I don't know how that is constitutional, especially because this is not happening for other religious institutions. And we have protections against this, like given that we're a secular nation, and there's an article to support this as well, saying that you cannot interfere in the administration. And then there's a law passed and it stood the courts. So it goes to like what is the court doing? Like, is this like does the problem stem from there? What are the risks of like having a centralized court giving diktats like this? Of course you have levels, but still, like, there's been no movement. How can you call yourself a secular country when the government interferes so grossly with religious affairs? We should be private.
We are not a secular country.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like functionally, we are not.
A secular country would be like France, like laicite.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
is no religious symbolism in any of the public space or government offices.
Hmm.
So no, we are not a secular country, and we should not be a secular country because our civilization is intrinsically diversity oriented.
Hmm.
The It may be controversial to say, but I think that Hinduism is intrinsically decentralized.
Interesting.
Yeah, because you cannot. You haven't noticed. You haven't ever read a story that some parent forced his son to worship this god.
Yeah, I mean, see that's like, yeah, fair enough. We are a polytheistic faith, right? So by definition,
Yeah,
that doesn't happen. Yes.
and also you haven't heard that some people went to some village to insult the local devi. No,
Well, there is scope for that to happen. No, I mean, just because it's not. So, for example, I mean, insult is maybe a strong thing, but there is like interreligious conflict, like among religions, and even within Hinduism, there's like sects of Hindus, right? Although it
no.
doesn't escalate to violence,
That-
but
yeah, it is. Yeah. Have you heard of the Protestant equivalent of Hindu wars or something like that? No,
Shaivites and Vaishnavites had those issues, right? I know. I'm not sure if they killed each other or
no,
something, but
they weren't burning each other's temples and immolating each other.
okay.
No,
Hmm.
and this is not me being ignorant of history or something like that.
Okay, you know
Uh,
for sure, right, that this is not the case. Because I think my knowledge on this goes to the fact that like uh, uh, like we are not. I wouldn't draw exact parallels, but all I'm saying is human nature is a certain way, and given the right conditions, things can happen. You know, like I'm a pessimist when it comes to this.
Regarding
Like regarding how robust, say, the Hindu community is to intercommunal tensions or
no,
intra-communal tensions. Let's just call it that way. Yeah.
no, communal fighting for your gods and communal are two different things.
Okay. Hmm.
Because what I'm talking about is that the decentralization point was that first of all there is no commandment in Hinduism as such.
Okay. Hmm.
You identify as Hindu.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
No, it's a separate aspect with you whether you are atheist or something. You can be an atheist and a Hindu as
Yeah,
well.
but then you can be
Uh,
civilizationally, you can associate with Hinduism. I'm an
yeah,
agnostic, so I don't practice Hinduism, but still, if I had to choose, I know what my choice would be. Like, if atheist was not
yeah,
an
and
option.
and you wouldn't be declared an apostate and kicked out of the community for this.
Yes.
And it has it has never happened in the history as well.
Hmm.
Like someone was kicked out because he stopped believing in some god. No, it is a very personal matter who you follow, and you can be the worshipper of Hanuman, Vishnu, or something, or any god you want, and there won't be that you should worship this. No, we don't accept worship of this here. And also, so with this level of decentralization, there is no central commandment that you can follow.
Hmm. Okay.
There are no 10 commandments.
Mhm.
There is no there is no legal body of work that you must adhere to be identified as a member of the community. It is a civilization. It is a culture.
Mhm.
It has unity in the form of the Char Dhams and the 18 Jyotirlings, if you know about them.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah, so it has some level of unity, but it doesn't impose any. I mean to say that Hinduism doesn't interfere with the politics as much.
Well, shouldn't it be by law that religion should be kept away from state affairs, though?
You don't need the law because the institution isn't interested in making laws, universal laws, as I say. Not, I wouldn't say that it is interested in regulating the lives of the people, but
Mhm.
it isn't interested in scaling its way of life to other people.
So you think that a Hindu state, a centralized Hindu state, is not possible? Like
No,
India can never become a
how?
centralized Hindu state.
No, but if you have a god emperor, he can do it. Like
Yeah.
yeah, talking about the origins of monotheism, the first monotheistic, as we know in history, was the first monotheist in history was the emperor of Egypt,
Hmm.
the father of Tutankhaten,
Yes.
Aten.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
He he became a sun worshipper and started destroying temples everywhere. Then his son King Tut came, and then he started restoring the balance to other gods. But yeah, he was the first. And interestingly, it is thought that the origin of Judaism is during the times of uh, King Aten.
Ah. Yeah. 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 There is a historical. There, I've heard about this somewhere else as well. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because Judaism before that, the Israelites were more polytheistic, right? Like
Yeah,
and
they
then
were
they were like, you have to
polytheistic.
worship only one God. It became like,
Yeah, Moses convinced them of one God, and it
yeah.
was possibly inspired by the Egyptian pharaoh.
Mhm.
And but he couldn't succeed, and the Judaism went to the Israel, and then with the declining of the Roman state, it spread itself like wildfire in the Roman Empire, and then Islam came,
Mhm.
and Muhammad himself, being a trader, uh, learned stories of his one of his uncles was I think the Jew Jew priest or something like that. I
Mhm.
mean, he used to tell stories about related to Judaism, and he learned those stories. And he also went. He for his trade, he used to go to Jerusalem and Israel all the time.
Mhm.
So he learned some stories there as well. So and then he integrated his ideas with the teachings of Judaism and produced another monotheistic religion. And now the big two, Christianity and Islam, dominate the Europe and Middle East and Africa as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, and interestingly, talking about the culture assimilation, it is my theory, and my friends also believe the same, that caste system saved India's Hinduism
How?
because there was no central implementer of the culture. So it was very hard to cut the head of the dragon.
Mhm. Interesting. But then see the caste system, you gotta weigh this. I mean, um, to me at least, like the downsides are far greater, right? Because it's such a rigid kind of it manifested itself into such a rigid form that your the jobs that you did were passed down a certain way. It's like you cannot really have much socio-economic mobility, and the social ills of the caste system is that, like, how many Brahmins do you see doing manual scavenging today? You know, so that is the situation. It's like I guess, like, they I mean, I could potentially see what you're saying, that like, that given that these communities were kind of separate and you couldn't slay all of them at the same time, some survived, some grew, some fell. Fair enough, but then the rigidity of the system as a whole made it very vulnerable because, like, you had a certain warrior class, you had a certain priestly class, you had a certain, labor class, and we are suffering the influences of that even up to today with some signals, like with, for example, the manual scavenging situation, you know. So, I mean, that's like something which, I think I don't agree with that it's a good thing or something. I mean, I can never agree to that,
No,
but
no,
it's
I'm not
yeah.
talking about whether it was good or bad. I was saying that the caste system saved Hinduism. I'm not saying that it is a good system. I'm saying that the system was able to confront the attacks of a centralizer.
Mhm. But then how did you see the thing is, if you see the Crusades, for example, that was between
Mhm.
Christianity and Islam, two centralized religions.
Yeah,
Both of them today are the largest religious groups in the world, right? Like the top two, followed by Hinduism, I
yeah.
guess, right? So it is not like, I mean, maybe it is true that it happened to do it, but I don't think it's a necessary condition, for,
Which one?
like, the
Oh,
caste system is not a necessary condition to bring in certain robustness, it just happened to have, like, you're saying that it happened to save us from certain ills, but then I'm not sure what the other side of the coin is, like, what are the distinct disadvantages that we were put to during conflicts because of the caste system, that some people cannot fight this, that, it's possible, right?
yeah. I think the rigidity of the caste system came from because even in the Bhagavad Gita, the caste is not by birth but by deeds.
Hmm. So how did it
So
metamorphosize to birth? So that's not a very robust system, right?
yes, the robustness comes from it being assigned by birth. So yeah, I think the 1,000 year invasion,
Hmm.
the from starting from the early 700s, 800s, with the coming of the Turkish Turks, etc., and Ghori, starting with the Ghori and Ghazni,
Hmm.
and then the 1,000 year occupation of the country. So the the effects of the tyranny of these Islamic centralizers manifest in the micro behavior of people as well. Because North India was much more affected by these invasions than Southern India, you can notice the differences in the cultural practices of the two regions. So in South, I mean, you may confirm it, but marriages take place in the day, during the day in South India, I think.
Yes, yes.
Whereas in North India, they mostly take place during the night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the the basic idea was that I think the system adapted according to it that it was much difficult. The problem was that if the marriage took place during the day, they took away the brides,
Hmm. Oh, well,
the
okay.
feudal lords.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Basically,
feudal lords.
you know what happens in Iraq, right? Uday Hussein, similar situation. Like, he
So
used to
what
actually,
happened?
so
I don't know.
so
What happened there?
basically Uday Hussein was basically Saddam Hussein's son.
Yeah,
Uh, so that guy, so he had his own squad of military type people or militia.
yeah.
Um, there, he used to, if he has his eye on a woman during their wedding, he used to go there, interrupt the wedding, and do things to the wife or the bride. You know, so that's, I mean, I guess, it sounds very similar to that. So yeah.
Yeah, so the community adopted it by shifting the ceremony to the night,
Hmm.
and the ghungat system.
Hmm.
If you
There's
if
a
you
veil,
notice
right? Veil.
the veil, the veil,
Mhm.
the if you notice paintings and the earlier times and compare them with the and notice the paintings during the height of the Islamic rule,
Mhm.
you'll see that the ghungat didn't exist, and in South India. Uh, I, the paintings, it was not very unusual to run around bare-breasted.
Hmm. Yeah, that used to be the
So
case in Kerala, actually. Yeah.
yeah, so you're getting my point, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the trust in society reduced. Let's just put it that way, right?
the the kinship bonds need to be strengthened to preserve the community.
Hmm.
And the ill effects of the strengthening of the community
Hmm.
was the discrimination that perpetuated in the society.
Okay. Yeah.
It
So,
preserved it preserved the system, but it also preserved the flaws.
hmm. Okay. Fair enough. So, I mean, let's just go back to the specifics of the idea of secularism. Then you're
Yeah.
saying that would you support, for example, removing, say, Article 26? So, Article 26. Let me just look it up exactly. Um, so the Article 26 is known as the freedom to manage religious affairs, the right to form and maintain institutions for religious and charitable intents, right to manage its own affairs in the matter of religion, right to acquire immovable and movable property, the right to administer such property according to law. So, would you support such an article, or do you think it should go away?
My basic stance is that if it doesn't disturb the law and order of the country,
Mm.
uh, then the law can exist. But if it is in but but if it interfere with the law and order of the state, then it has to go. So that's it.
Hmm.
We can go into the details of it, that what particular thing can be done. But my basic stance is that law preservation of law and order is central, and then comes the
Hmm.
second part.
Oh, which is the freedom to manage your religious affairs. So that should not interfere with law and order.
Yeah, it has to be subservient to the maintenance of law and order.
Okay, fair enough. Say for example, you cannot have a religious institution that promotes, or a religious institution in a building where it promotes that you have to kill certain other people or something, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is fair. Yeah, that is fair. But then, that is again that comes within the ambit of free speech protections and its restrictions, right? So,
yeah. But
threat.
as I said, limits of free speech are tested when you call for violence.
Yeah, true. Absolutely agree. Yeah, absolutely agree. So I guess like I don't think even you disagree with the fact that we should have the freedom to manage our own religious affairs, only that it shouldn't cause loss of life or threaten loss of life or property, right? Of others. Basically, just do your own thing. Don't affect other
Yeah,
people,
it's a
right?
classic liberal stance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that is consistent with freedom of religion and even secularism to some extent, no?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that was